Hello everyone, and welcome to another Dead by Daylight video. Today, as you can tell, I'm way happier than I usually am in my intro because I am not making a gameplay video, so there's no way I can get frustrated with the game. Today, I will be explaining to you guys every single tech in Dead by Daylight for Survivor. This is only going to be part 1 though, because I just finished editing this video, so this is me from the future. You're going to talk to me from the past in a little bit, and I literally just realized how long this video would be if I talked about every single tech in the game, and I probably don't even know all of them. It would be very bold of me to think that I know every single tech in the game, so please tell me the techs that I missed in this video, because I will be making part 2, and I already have a lot of techs that I'm making for part 2. There might even be a part 3 for all I know. Please tell me the techs that you want to see next video. A lot, if not all, of the techs that I'm going to be explaining to you guys are very clever uses of game mechanics, so throughout this video you're going to learn a lot about the game or how the game works, so you can use them to your advantage and make killers do funny things. Yeah, this is also going to help you killer mains, because these survivor techs are going to be used on you. So yeah, as Sun Tzu once said, you got to know what your enemies are doing. Yep, you got to know what they're doing so you don't fall for them, so you don't die in a war. That's what he said.
Was it really a skilled play in the first place?
So a CJ tech is something that only works on killers that don't know what a CJ is. So if you're a killer main, this is going to help you a lot, because if you know what a CJ is, you're never going to fall for it. And to understand what it is, you have to understand a few or 2 basic DBD mechanics. In DBD, if a survivor is interacting with an object, in most cases, the killer has to wait until they're done interacting with it to then be able to do it themselves. So pallet breaking, for example. If a survivor is vaulting a pallet, the killer does not have the option to break it until the survivor is done vaulting it. Same goes for the other way around. The survivor cannot vault a pallet if the killer is breaking it. Of course, the killer can still hit the survivor or grab them by the neck if they're injured, but they cannot break the pallet specifically if the survivor is vaulting it. Okay? Simple. Another mechanic is the fact that DBD does not offer you the option to have separate keybinds for picking up survivors and breaking pallets. It's all the same key. And on console, it's even worse somehow. If you combine those 2 mechanics, you get the CJ tech. A CJ happens whenever you force the killer to pick up a downed survivor instead of breaking a pallet. Simple as that. If you are trying to break a pallet while a downed survivor is directly beneath you, and another survivor vaults that same pallet that you're trying to break at the exact same time that you press spacebar, you're going to pick up the survivor instead of breaking the pallet. And that is when the CJ happens, because the same survivor that vaulted into you is going to vault that same pallet back and then flashlight save the survivor that you just picked up by accident. Okay, so now that you understand what a CJ is, I'm going to show you the variations of it, because all of them work except for the window one. The window is never going to work, but I'm still going to show you. A vault CJ happens whenever there's a downed survivor directly in front of the locker, and you see someone vaulting into the locker, and you're like, oh, you're dead, man. I'm just gonna open this locker up and pick you up, and then you're gonna go to the hook, and your friend is also gonna die. But then when you're trying to open the locker, he's gonna vault out of the locker, and you're gonna be forced into picking up the survivor that's directly in front of it, and you're gonna get flashlight saved. And this last one is the window CJ that it's just not gonna happen. It's hard to pull off. The killer has to be brain dead to fall for this one, but if a survivor is down directly in front of a window and you vault the window when the killer is trying to vault that same window, you force the killer into picking up the survivor, and then you flashlight save them. This can also be useful if you're like in a swift and then someone else does the vaulting for you and forces the killer into picking up, and then a third survivor comes in and flashlight saves. That can be useful, but not when you're trying to do it by yourself, because the timing is way too tight. There's no way you can do it without the killer looking away.
I think we did a pretty good job so far.
Okay, so there is a lot of different FOV techs in this game, just because the survivor is seeing the game in third person and the killer is seeing the game in first person, and there's a lot of ways you can abuse the killer with this. One of these techs is actually my favorite one in all of DBD. I love this one. This has no name, so I'm just gonna call it the crouch pallet breaking tech weird thing that only works if the killer doesn't know what it is. When the killer is breaking a pallet, he is locked into the animation of breaking the pallet, and even after after the pallet is already broken, he is still kind of finishing the animation, so he is still locked into the animation. That gives you enough time to run up to the killer and crouch at the corner of the screen. In the killer's screen, it really looks like you're going behind him, because once you crouch, the killer has to be looking straight when he's locked into the pallet breaking animation, so he can't be looking down. So it really looks like you're going behind him, and the newer killer is gonna swing backwards hoping to hit you before you get distance. When in reality, the survivor literally cannot go behind you because you're body blocking him, so it's literally impossible to. And if you successfully bait the hit, you can just run backwards and get some distance. The next one is called the inside tech. This one has a lot of different variations. JRM created one that's called the penis tech. So yeah, you guys can look up the different variations because you can be really creative with this one. So one mechanic that you have to understand why this one works is that in DBD, when you get injured by any means, you have no collision for a few seconds. And by no collision, I don't mean that you can walk through walls. Like, I mean no collision with other players and with the killer. So this means that if the killer hits you, you can literally go inside of the killer and then back out the other side. What I like doing is just going inside the killer, making it seem like I'm going behind him, but then running back and just running in the same direction. This makes the killer lose a little bit of time looking behind him, and if he's new to the game, he's gonna be confused. It'll look everywhere around him and then find you finally when you have some distance. This doesn't work on most killers though, because if the killer is good at the game, he's just not gonna look behind him because he probably knows what you're doing, or he's just gonna stand still and look behind him, and he doesn't find you behind him. He knows that you're gonna be in front of him. So but as I said, this has a lot of different variations. This is just you using the mechanic that you don't have any collision when you get hit to mess with the killer's head. Okay, so this tech most likely has a name, I just don't know what it is, so I'm just gonna call it the Jumpscare Tech because that is the literal translation to what people call it in my native language. So the Jumpscare Tech. This tech happens whenever the survivor turns a corner while in a chase, and when the killer loses sight of the survivor just jumps at the killer's face. This is called the Jumpscare Tech in my language because the killer usually gets scared by it, just seeing a survivor just jumping in your screen like that. And in the killer's screen, it looks like you're going behind him again, or you just run at him and then run away, and he doesn't have time to hit you because he's gonna be scared, so he's not even gonna lunge. He's just gonna click the mouse once and hopefully hope that he hits you. This one can work pretty well. This is probably the most usable one out of all the ones I taught you so far in the FOV section, especially if you're injured, because the killer is going to be expecting a dead hard and he's just not going to hit you, or he's going to swing behind him. There's a lot of ways this can work, so pretty usable. The dumb tech. So the name on this one pretty much describes how usable it is. And I'm putting this on the FOV tech because, again, the only reason this really works is because the killer is in first person. The dumb tech is very simple. When you're in a chase, you drop a pallet, you stun the killer. Instead of doing what a normal person would do and running away or waiting until the killer breaks the pallet, you use the stun animation to vault into the killer's face. If the killer is really bad at the game, or new to the game I should say, he is gonna swing at the pallet or swing behind him and you can make some distance. Okay, so the window tech is the only tech in this whole video that I can't do consistently yet, and there's only one mechanic you really need to understand about this in order to be able to do the window tech, which is when you have either clairvoyance or a key that has aura reading add-ons, you have a little bar below your screen that indicates that you're using the item or the perk. While that bar is up, and only when that bar is up, you have no collision with players or killers. I don't know why this is, I don't know the reason for this, but this is just how the game works. A window tech happens whenever a killer vaults a window and you pretend to go to one side, but then you clip through the killer and go to the other side. There are two ways to do this. The first one is using either clairvoyance or a key. So when the killer is vaulting the window, you activate the key or clairvoyance to go through the killer and to the other side. And the other one is you have to do it pixel perfectly. Like in the exact moment the killer hits his 2 feet on the ground, you have to be walking through him or running through him, and then you're gonna have a very tight, inconsistent, weird window to clip through the killer without using a key or clairvoyance. Doing a window tech with either a key or clairvoyance is really easy. You just have to go to one side, activate the item, and while the item is active, you go through the killer to the other side. This is really useful because the killer is just going to lose sight of you. But if you don't have the item or clairvoyance, why do I keep repeating this? You have to be pixel perfect about it, and I just like I said, I can't do it consistently, so I'm not going to be the one to explain it to you. It took a lot of different tries to get these 2 clips that you guys are watching, but it is one of the most satisfying mechanics in the whole game. So if you can get it consistently, it's really good. Okay, so there are a lot more FOV Tech variations to the ones I talked about earlier, and I really don't want to talk about them like repeating myself with slightly different scenarios. Like it's pretty much an inside tech, but when the killer is like breaking a breakable wall or something. So I'm just gonna leave them to the part 2 of this video that I'm gonna be making anyway, because I can't cover all of the perks in the same video. It's gonna take way too long to post this, and I kind of want to keep my videos consistent. So I will be moving on to the next section, but keep in mind that there are more, and I will talk about them in the next video.
Or play something else for a week. Try select.
Okay, so the double locker tech is one of my favorite mechanics in the game, right behind the crouch weird thing that only works on killers, because you kind of feel when you have a double locker setup and you have a competent teammate that can not fumble every single flashlight save. When you have this setup, you can just stay there and the killer will never be able to hook any of you. The one mechanic you gotta understand here is that when a survivor is inside of a locker, the only thing the killer can do is grab them out of the locker. There is nothing else they can do. They can't hit them in the locker. They can't do anything other than grabbing them. And grabbing a survivor out of the locker is an animation by itself. And usually when the killer is locked into an animation, there is a way to flashlight save them. And that is no different for the locker. There are only 3 killers that I know of that cannot be locker saved, and a lot of the killers have different timings and weird angles that you have to do. Like for example, Freddy, when he's grabbing someone out of the locker, he does a little bump. So if you're aiming your flashlight too high, you don't get it. And behavior seems to mess up the flashlight save timing on lockers like pretty much every update, so it is one of the most inconsistent things in the game. But if you can get it in that update, it can be kind of consistent. The only 3 killers that cannot be flashlight saved are Ghostface, because he does a little teleport inside the locker, it's weird, Demogorgon, and Blight, because both of these cannot be flashlight saved from an angle because they just shove their heads inside of the locker. It's weird. But if you're playing against any of the other killers, you can stay there forever. Basically how this goes is you and your teammate enter the locker, and the killer has to choose one of you to pull out of the locker, and whoever he doesn't choose just jumps out of the locker and flashlight saves, and then both of you go back inside the locker. Admittedly, this is a big waste of time because there's 2 of you wasting time, and the killer can just choose to not pull any of you out of the locker and go for someone that's doing gens. That's the only reason I think that this is not OP, because the killer can just not go for both of you. He can just go for someone else. You guys are already wasting your time, you know? And this is not a setup that is on every map. It is on very specific maps. So yeah, people complain about this a lot, but I don't think it's OP at all. And there's also the grab tech. This is one of the techs that I don't see many people doing, and it's weird because it's kind of strong. It's not very strong as in the killer can just lunge, but it is somewhat strong. The mechanic you have to understand how this works is that grabs are a thing. Basically, if you're doing an action like cleansing a totem, opening a chest, doing a generator, vaulting inside of a locker, slow vaulting inside of a locker, I mean, you can be grabbed. Grabbing means that the killer is going to negate the need to hit you twice and pick you up from the ground and go straight into picking you up. Keep in mind that the killer has to be really close to you and he has to not lunge too. But if the killer does the attack button when he's really close to you when you're doing an action, he's gonna grab you immediately. But guess what, guys? Grabbing is also an animation. The grab tech is just you performing an action that can be grabbed out of mid-chase when you have a teammate with a flashlight nearby. So if a teammate of yours is just running away from the killer and he spots a chest midway through the chase, you can just tell him, yo, open this chest, and then the killer is gonna be like, what? Why the hell would you open a chest mid-chase? That's so dumb, I'm just gonna grab you, noob. And then the killer is like, oh, I see why. Yeah, you know, he gets flashlight saved, that's why. And that is gonna be the end of the video, or the end of part 1. I guess this video is part 1, so it is the end of the video. I don't know why I corrected my... Yo, how you guys doing? I know that I didn't cover all of the survivor techs. I covered the main ones, I'm pretty sure. Like, the ones that I didn't cover are like the very obscure weird ones that not many people know about. But I guess that is the point of this video. I'm trying to, I don't know, talk about the ones that people don't know. So I guess next video is going to be better than this one. I was going to make this like a 40-minute long video where I talked about every single tech in the game, but I realized how much of a big undertake that would be and I just decided to split this into a few videos instead of doing them all at once. This is better for the algorithm because YouTube likes consistent videos, and it's better for me because I don't want to sit here for like 2 days straight making a Dead by Daylight video. But yeah, I hope you guys did enjoy this. Subscribe so you can get the next one where I talk about the penis tech. And that's about it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys whenever I post another one, probably in like 3 days or something like that.
Woof.